In this week's guitar lesson, we are going to be looking at the most important scale you will ever learn, the major scale. We're going to be delving into how the major scale is formed and how it compares to other scales. So let's look at the major scale. So for today, we're using the 3-note per string method and we are going from G major. Okay, so if I just go through the pattern with you, 3rd fret low E, then up to the 5th fret low E, up to the 7th fret low E, then on the A string we go 3, 5, 7 again, and then on the D string we go to the 4th fret D, and then to the 5th fret of the D, which is our octave. Okay, so we're going to look at whole steps and half steps. The way I look at it is how many frets are between each note. So for an example, we've gone from 3 to 5. This would be a whole step up because we're going up 2 frets. And again, when we go from 5 to 7, it's another whole step up because we're going up 2. Okay, if we were to only go up 1 fret, it would be a half a step. Let's look at how this affects the major scale. So from 3 to 5, we've got that whole step. And then from 5 to 7, we have got a whole step. And then when we go to our 3rd fret on the A, it is a half a step. Now I know it might be confusing because we're going to the next string, but another way to look at it, if we just stayed on this low E string, our 3rd fret A, which is a C, would be on the 8th fret of the low E. Okay, and then the last note that we played on the low E was the 7th fret. We're only going up 1 fret, so it's a half step. So from the 3rd fret of the A to the 5th fret of the A, again, it's a whole step. And then we're going to the 7th fret from the 5th, so it's a whole step again. And then when we go to the 4th fret of the D, this is a F sharp. Okay, so this is another whole step. Again, if we do what we did for the low E, if we continued on the A string, our F sharp would be on the 9th fret of the A. Okay, so our last note on the A string was the 7th fret. Okay, so we've gone up a whole step. So from this F sharp here, we go to our octave, which is 1 fret up, so it's a half step. So you would say the major scale is formulated by using whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half steps. We're now going to compare this to the minor scale. So if we play the minor scale again in G, so now we're going to see how this is different. So straight off we start on our 3rd fret low E, exactly the same. Then we go up to the 5th fret low E, exactly the same as the major scale. But this time we go to the 6th fret low E rather than 7th fret. Okay, so at the moment we've got whole and then a half rather than whole and whole. And then we go down to the 3rd fret of the A. Again, this is exactly the same as a major. Okay, so we are going up a whole step. Okay, so our last note on the low E for this minor scale was the 6th fret low E, and we'd be going up to the 8th fret. Okay, so we're going up 2 frets, it's a whole. So our next note in the scale is the 5th fret A, so our D, 2 frets up, so it's a whole. This time, rather than go to the 7th fret A like we would for our major scale, we're going to the 6th fret A. Okay, so that's up 1 fret, so it's half a step. And then we're going down to our 3rd fret D, which is an F. Okay, this is a whole step from our last note. So our last note was this 6th fret A, which is a D sharp. If we stayed on this A string, our F would be here, so it's a whole step. Okay, and then we go to our octave. Again, that's a whole step because we've gone up 2 frets. So the formula we use for the minor scale is whole, half, whole, whole, half, whole, whole. As you can see in the text above, you can now see the differences between the major and the minor scale and how they are formed. Another thing you might observe is that essentially for the major scale wholes and halves, okay, you notice the very last W has the H next to it, and then if we look at our minor scale, it's got the W and the H, and it essentially just continues from there. So for our major scale, we go from the last W, then to the H, and then to W, W, H, W, W. So next, we're now going to look at intervals. Now, I think the best way to look at intervals as how scales get their sounds. The major scale, it's widely considered to be a pretty happy sounding scale, okay, and then if we compare it to the minor scale, it's a bit more moodier, okay. So why might that be? The intervals for the major scale is really easy, essentially 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, that's pretty simple. So now we can use that to compare to the minor scale. So remember, for the major scale, we go 3, 5, 6. Okay, so our third note is on this 6th fret low E rather than the 7th fret of the low E, which it would be for the major. So what do we call this? It's pretty self-explanatory really. Our third for the major scale is here. So if we want to go down 1 fret, what we say is that we're going to flatten it. Okay, so this would be called a flat third. This means so far our intervals are 1, 2, and flat 3, flat third. And then if we move on to our next note, so we're moving down to the A string, it's a 4, okay, because it's exactly the same note as in the major scale. Okay, they both share that note, they're both 4. Then we go up to the 5th, which is a D. Again, shares a note between the major and minor, so it's just 5. But then for the minor scale, we go to the 6th fret A again. This is different to the major scale. The major scale would be going up to the 7th fret A, and then minor with the flat 6th. Okay, and now we are going down to our 3rd fret D. This is different from the major scale because for the major scale we'd be on the 4th fret D. Okay, so this is our next note along from our 6th. Okay, so this is our 7th. So if we're going to play this note here for the minor scale, it would be a flat 7th. Major, which is the 3rd, to our minor, which is the flat 3rd. Our major here would be the 6th, so our minor would be a flat 6th here, and our major would be the 7th. So here for our minor it is the flat 7. And then for our octave it is the same, so it's 8. Okay, so our intervals for the minor scale is 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, 8. Okay, so you can hear these flat notes are what give the minor scale its sad and moody kind of sound. So to emphasize how this compares to other scales, there's a harmonic minor scale. Okay, so the harmonic minor scale is this: 3, 5, 6, 3, 5, 6, 4, 5. Okay, so we got our 1, we got our 2, we got our flat 3, got our 4, 5, flat 6, but rather than a flat 7, it has a 7th. Okay, so that is the 4th fret D, and then it goes to our octave, which is 8. So the harmonic minor scale, to me it's kind of like a Mexican Spanish kind of sound, and it is that 7th is what gives it that sound. So that's our minor, and our harmonic minor is. So this is a basic look into the major scale and essentially how it affects the other scales that exist in music. Obviously this can go off in so many other directions, but we're just going to keep it for that today. I hope this lesson helped you. If you've got any questions regarding this, feel free to leave a comment below. I know it can be difficult sometimes to pick up theory like this, but I'm always here if you need a hand. If you like this video, click like, click subscribe, click the bell, and you'll be notified each time I upload a lesson.